And now, a story from the Appleseed.
Okay. So one of my absolute favorite characters is the spider from West Africa. Does anyone know his name? Anansi. Of course you guys know his name. You're a story audience. Now, Anansi's kind of a cool character because he did this kind of amazing thing. He jumps all over Africa, turning into other kinds of creatures. So if you see a guinea fowl story or you see a dik-dik story, it very well may be an Anansi story. Anansi was brought out of West Africa with the West Africans when they were brought over to North America. One of the first places the West Africans were taken was to the Caribbean, and when they got there, they weren't allowed to tell their stories, worship their own religions, or speak their own languages. But they wanted to keep Anansi the spider. They turned him into a woman. If you go to the Caribbean, you can hear stories about a woman named Aunt Nancy. It's Anansi the spider. Here in America, then they brought them here to North America, to the United States. They weren't allowed to speak their languages, worship their religions, or tell their stories, but they wanted to keep Anansi, and they turned him into a rabbit. He is the basis of Brer Rabbit. Brer is a shortened form of the word brother, and all of these stories are about one thing. The second you stop thinking, you're gonna be in trouble. They're all about how anyone can do anything to your body, but your mind is what sets you free. Brer Rabbit jumped all over America, getting mixed up with the Native American tricksters and the European tricksters and the Asian tricksters. And at some point in the 1940s, they all turned into Bugs Bunny. So the next time you see Bugs Bunny, you are in fact seeing a little piece of Africa. So let us start with an Anansi story, a very, very simple one. It's called Anansi and the Pot. Now, Anansi lived in a village with Onini, and Onini had a great big bean pot. And they believed in this village in the philosophy of plenty. That means everyone will have enough if we share. Now, Onini never shared his bean pot. He always wanted to be the one to have the biggest parties. He always wanted to be in everyone's view. He was Onini. He would never lend out his bean pot. Anansi thought he should take him down a peg or two. And so he came over to Onini's house and he asked to borrow his bean pot. And Onini said, absolutely not. You can't borrow me my bean pot. I know how you are, Anansi. You'll break it. No. I just want to borrow it. No, you can't. But Anansi is annoying. How many of you know someone that just keeps at you and at you and at you and at you? And finally, Onini couldn't take it anymore. He says, okay, but you have to bring it back in 2 days. Anansi said, no problem. So that first night, Anansi has a big party. He's sharing the beans. They're having a great time. And the next day, he does not bring Onini's pot back. He brings back a little bitty pot. Onini says, what is this? Anansi said, I'm sorry, but your bean pot had a baby. Now, Onini had never seen his bean pot have a baby, but now he just took it because now he has 2 pots. Well, Anansi brought his pot back the next couple of days. Well, about a month later, Anansi showed up at Onini's house and said, Onini, I want to borrow your pot. And at first Onini said, no. But Anansi just kept at him until finally Onini agreed and Anansi took the pot. And he had a big party and everyone came and they were eating beans. Everyone was so happy. And the next day, Anansi did not bring his pot back. He brought back 2 little pots. Onini says, what is this? Anansi said, your bean pot had twins. Onini kept both pots, and then, of course, Anansi brought his bean pot back. Well, a month later, Anansi was approaching Onini's house, and Onini came out onto the porch with the bean pot. Here you go. Do you want to borrow my bean pot? Yes, I do. You bring it back when you can. And Anansi took it home, and Onini waited. First time there was 1. Second time there was 2. Maybe it'll have triplets next. Woo! Well, a few days later, there was a big funeral procession in town. Everybody was weeping and wailing, and Onini, who always has his thumb on everything that's in the town, realized he did not know who had died. He was panicked about it. He didn't want to look like he didn't know, so he put on his best clothes and he went out and joined the procession. He was weeping and wailing with the rest of everybody. Oh no. He had no idea who had died. Finally, the funeral was over and everybody was leaving. And Onini walked up to Anansi and he said, Anansi, I don't know who died. You don't know? No, I don't know. It was your bean pot. Your bean pot died. Onini said, that's ridiculous. A bean pot cannot die. Anansi said, if it can have a baby, it can die. And he kept Onini's bean pot. And that is the story of Anansi and the pot. So tricksters, their job is to teach us what we should not be doing. And sometimes they get caught in their traps, and sometimes they get away. Anansi can get caught. Brer Rabbit never can. He is the spirit of the African-American people.
Thanks for joining us for a story from the Appleseed.